When I wasn't taking calls, I was hunting criminals. In my book, our job is to take people to jail. How is crime happening? Well, nowadays, they're using the internet. They're doing a lot of things online. Hey, man, bad guys don't care about that stuff. They don't care. You know who cares about that? Politicians care about that. They could look super nice, but they might want to kill you. I just knew work hard, be good on the road, be trustworthy, be good at my skills, right, to the level that I can. I want to fight the toughest dudes, right? Yeah. My wife is in my house and she's choosing not to leave, does not make her a hostage. I mean, it's on. Like he flat pedals to the metal. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I literally went, oh my God, someone is dead.
He legitimately Dukes of Hazzard it over these
100%. Dogs. And that's not my only Dukes of Hazzard story. 100%.
Well, hey, Wayne, thanks for having us out here on that
bet.
Epic hunt.
Yeah, that was a blast, man. That was great. Don't know if we'll repeat that one again.
I've never had a turkey hunt like that.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, we had a slow morning, so we decided to go out and get some grub. Came back and all those toms were on the field, just like we were joking would happen. Yeah. And then we tried to put a stalk on them. They busted us, or
failed miserably.
They danced on out of there, and then we stayed for a while and started to get a little, question, okay, what are we gonna get one? And then all of a sudden 5 toms come out, and
yeah,
man.
Good thing I was actually looking over there, because I think you guys were taking a nap or something, weren't you?
Probably.
Yeah, worked out perfect.
I know Tim was.
Yeah, worked out perfect.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for having us here, and appreciate the hospitality and you being willing to share your testimony, share your story, your experience. And I know you're very well respected in not just the law enforcement community, but primarily the SWAT community as well, even nationally now. So yeah, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling us about yourself?
Yeah. If I leave something out, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Wayne Dubois. I'm retired law enforcement, 27 years in law enforcement. Most of my career, I worked in the Tri-Cities area. So I started at Benton County Sheriff's Office there, ended up lateraling over to Richland. And during that time there, which is, again, most of my career, about 22 years, I was on the SWAT team for 20 of those years over there. And worked up to team leader and was involved in WSTOA, got involved in the NTOA as an instructor. And so able to share a lot of my experiences in training. And I've been married. We're almost at 30 years. Actually 4 kids. One has passed, like I was talking to you about. Adult daughter lives back in the Tri-Cities. And then I have one son that travels all over the country. And my other son is here. And I actually have a grandchild, my first grandchild, Nora. Got a shout out to Nora. She's pretty awesome.
Right on.
So yeah. And involved in my church out here. We just a little tiny church out here in Summers, Montana, but it's pretty cool. I'm for some reason they asked me to be an elder at the church there. So, but
no relation to age.
Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah. So I mean, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. You were talking about WSTOA. You were the WSTOA president, right?
Yeah, I started in WSTOA, man, I want to say it was probably like 2001 or something like that.
What is WSTOA and the NTOA for people that don't know?
So WSTOA, Washington State Tactical Officers Association, and then the NTOA is the National Tactical Officers Association. So most states have a state association. And then the NTOA is, as in the title, it's a national organization. And it's actually kind of international, because we have a lot of international interaction with students at conferences and training, out of country at times and things like that. But it was about 2001. I'd been on SWAT a few years and started off as I think they called it at the time a district rep at the time. Yeah. So that was for my, the counties in my area, and basically moved all the way up. I stayed with them until about 2016 and moved and did multiple different positions up until president when I left. And when you're at least when I was there, when you're the president, you're kind of like in charge of the SWAT school. And so I taught there for years, pretty much from the time I started teaching basic SWAT and advanced SWAT for the state. So got to be a part of that, taught a ton of classes, over 1,000 guys for sure. So that was really good. That was one of the very formative things for me, because you go back in there and you're teaching with all of these guys that are like team leaders from all over the state, and you're re-honing these basic skills. You know, probably heard it said, people will say, you know, what's advanced? That's just being really good at the basics, really. And so, you know, I remember when I went back and started teaching, it's like, wow, like I forgot a lot of the finer points of what we're doing. And so that was really good. And then you, like I said, you teach with all these guys. And so every time there's a class, you come back and you're like, oh, hey, what are you guys doing? You know what I mean? So you're bouncing everything off of each other, and it kind of iron sharpens iron kind of a thing, right? And so you go, hey, the Valley dudes are doing this or whatever, and why are we not? Well, maybe because we shouldn't be, or whatever the reason. So great experience. And then I actually got involved in the NTOA. Super interesting deal. A good friend of mine, Jeff Selig, he was actually on the Valley team and ended up being a commander there. He was an instructor for the NTOA, and they 2014 they were running a beta class for the Tactical Commander 2 class, and so they had the instructors kind of handpicked dudes who they thought would really give good feedback. Flew us all down to Fort Lauderdale, which that was terrible for the class, and the whole idea was there was only I think like 5, maybe 6 of us in the class, but they were going to bring all of the TAC 1 instructors to see the class, and then they were going to be basically prepared to teach it. So I was actually on administrative leave for an OIS at the time, and I fly down there, and I'm really giving feedback. Like every block, I'm like filling out the paper and giving them verbal feedback and everything. So it turns out hardly any of the instructors could show up. So there was hardly any of them there. And we got done with that whole week, and I was like, yeah, man, this is a good class. Like, it's a good follow on to the TAC 1. And the lead instructor, the guy that was basically responsible for everything, I think it was like on Friday or whatever, he's like, hey, can I talk to you? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, hey, none of my instructors showed up, and I think you can teach this class. And we basically double booked dudes in this class for the upcoming conference in Alabama. And I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll do it. So that kind of started my journey with NTOA. And again, just those relationships, great blessing working there. You get to teach all over the country. And so you really get to see, like, where are you at? Where's your team at? And what is contemporary? What is actually best practice and what's going on, you know? So that's been really cool. And then when I retired, I took a full-time job with NTOA as a program manager it's called the Miracle Program, stands for Mental Illness Response Alternative Center for Law Enforcement. Yeah. And so that's been just, again, a total blessing, the timing of that job and everything. And it's been great. Yeah. Great, awesome. Great group of people to work with. And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right on. So decades in law enforcement, what would you say in regards to just standard patrol? Because the Tri-City, the regional team, it's a part-time team with essentially full-time work, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But being on patrol.
That's a good one. I might be a little bit jaded because things have changed a lot since I started.
Right.
Like a lot. And, you know, I had come to Montana whenever all the crime bill stuff happened, which, I mean, if I'm being honest, it wasn't good. It's not good for the citizens of Washington State. It's less safe because of the crime bill silliness and it defies logic, in my opinion.
Right.
And they've kind of, in some ways, kind of hamstrung you guys a lot from when I was there.
Yeah.
But here's the flip side of that, though, is that's my bias based on my experience. The people coming into law enforcement now, that's all they know. So they're being trained that way. And so they don't have that bias that I have. That's just how it is. So they just have to learn to function in that. It's actually kind of a hard question because it really kind of comes down to the agency that you work for and what's their expectation.
Yeah.
So when I started in law enforcement in 1996, they actually, how they handled stuff was like the studs went out and you hammered traffic. Like when you weren't taking calls,
Yeah.
You went after bad guys.
Yeah.
And it wasn't speeding tickets. Like,
Right.
you drove around and I'm like, okay, that dude looks like he's got warrants and drugs and everything else. And I would pull those guys over.
Yeah, you're not wasting time with the soccer mom.
Yeah.
You're
And
taking care of crime.
Yeah. And oddly enough, I was right most of the time. But the culture there is super interesting. There was no like, hey guys, this is like what we want you to do, basically, like obligated time versus non-obligated time. There's no direction of focus. So you could have one guy, and this actually happened, literally would write like a ticket a year. And you'd have guys like me that were, I was writing, back then, we were arresting for suspended driver, like physically arresting them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd arrest 25, 30 a month.
Yeah.
And then, there would be like all the misdemeanor, the drugs, the guns and everything. So and I'm not making this up, like when I wasn't taking calls, I was hunting criminals. And I would probably on an average month in those first 5 years I worked over there, an average month for me would be 25 to 40 misdemeanor arrests.
Yeah.
10 to 20 felony arrests. And I had a criteria for writing actual citations to people. Right. And there were times back then, because of what you could do, I literally remember 10th and pulling up at like 10th and Washington, right? At the intersection, I look across the street and I see a dude and he's got he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and I'm looking at his car and I'm like, yep. And I look over, there's a car of 4 dudes and they're like doing the same thing. And I look at the other intersection and I'm literally going, okay, which one looks the best? Which one do I pick?
Yeah.
And I ended up pulling, I think it was the car that was heading east, and arrested like 4 dudes out of the car, all of them.
Yeah.
And like a lot of that stuff, like you just can't do it that way anymore. You can, but it doesn't quite work the same. So to prepare people for law enforcement, in my book, our job is to take people to jail that shouldn't be there. And the reality is, and some of the stuff that's been lost over time is that how is crime happening? Well, nowadays they're using the internet. They're doing a lot of things online, but ultimately it has to go to ground, right? You got to transport drugs through cars. That's how they typically do it, or whatever. Where do we intercept those people? We intercept them by field contacts and traffic stops.
Yeah.
And that's just the fact. So if you've got a group of folks that are out there going after those people, your odds of interrupting something big and stopping crime are huge. You know, and I was just really blessed. I worked with some great folks. Richland, when I ran street crimes, I had a phenomenal group of dudes that I worked with, and these guys like flat got after it. They were going after bad guys. And again, this is my opinion. I put a lot of effort into being ready for the conflict, and I hate to paint with a broad brush, but I think that, people have to stay off their phone. They got to pay attention to what's going on, because that's going to get you hurt,
or killed.
So for sure. So nothing again. I got a phone. I get on my phone, Right. But what I'm saying is like, all
alley.
of this kind of this, and it seems like the pendulum's swinging a little bit, but all the wokeness and all of this stuff. Hey man, bad guys don't care about that stuff. They don't care. You know who cares about that? Politicians care about that. Then that filters down into chiefs, and we want to make everybody feel good. Hey man, I'll feel good when I'm safe back at home after my shift and in bed. Like, I can treat people good. So you got to find the balance, right? You got to be respectful to people and treat them well.
Yep.
But also don't be afraid to offend people. And that's another thing is, I think a lot of it has to do with upbringing, but you've got to be willing to confront people, get in their face and control them, right? There's studies, I don't even know if they still teach this stuff, but the FBI did a lot of studies on cop killers, and they came up with like the 7 deadly sins, I think it was, and the 10 deadly errors, those kind of things. Because they interviewed guys that killed cops.
Yeah.
And one of the big things is they look at you, they look at your physical stature, they look at whether you're paying attention, and are you controlling? Yeah. And they had lots of these guys, they interviewed them, and they're like, yeah, I had gotten stopped by a dude like that. And I was like, nah, he's ready for me. I'll wait till the next guy.
Yep.
And they picked the next guy. So like, I just think that patrol, it's funny being on SWAT, you're going and you're dealing with the worst of the worst, but it's different in that A lot of times it's already ongoing. They know the cops are there. The stuff on patrol, man, you walk up on a car, that could be it, man. They're wheeling a gun on you, rolling out with a gun or whatever. You get in a foot pursuit and they have a gun or something. Yeah, had several of those, you know, and so you got to be paying attention. You got to be ready to do that stuff. And also don't avoid it. Don't avoid it. And that's something like you want the death kiss as a cop. Let other cops think that you're slow going to back up.
Right.
You're slow going to the fight. Man, for me, I was like, let me get there. If there be strife, let it be on my watch. That was kind of the thing. And I just wanted, I loved it. You know what I mean? Loved it. So I don't know. Hopefully I answered your question.
No, for sure. And when you're talking about essentially officer presence, there's the same thing in the military overseas when a lot of times terrorists will observe a patrol, for example, and they'll see, okay, you know, depending, you're patrolling in a permissive, non-permissive environment, you should always be on lock no matter what. And whether it's your last patrol deployment, you ain't taken contact in 4 months, same route, same patrol, same thing, you know, whatever. The enemy's watching and they're watching for you to drop your guard. Is the guy just kind of like head down, you know, lax, just kind of going through the motions, gonna hit that guy. He's the guy I want to fight rather than the dude that's like, where you at?
Yeah.
Let's play.
No, I totally agree, but I do think it's really important. Like, and I get you're talking in a military context. That's one of the things that's challenging about law enforcement, especially like patrol, is like one contact. It's not the enemy, right?
Right.
They're citizens.
Yeah.
So one contact, it's like super nice people.
Yeah.
And the next one, they could look super nice, but they might want to kill you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you really have to be on your toes, and it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. One call, you could be talking to some little kid and just being essentially kind of a dad or just kind of being that warm presence. The next one, you're going to a robbery, you know, or some hot call, and you're having to throttle up and down. And well, yeah, awesome. Now, what about in regards to SWAT? What was that like?
Man, it was a great experience for me. I think in my career, it was the most enjoyable thing I did. For a lot of reasons.
Did you go into law enforcement knowing you wanted to do SWAT?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. So when I was in the military, I don't want to tell too many stories, but I was stupid. Okay. When I went in, I wanted to go on the Rangers. That's what I wanted to do. And I did delayed entry program. So I go down there and I'm like, yep, sign me up for the Rangers, man. I want a 40 contract. They're like, got to get you're 17 because you're delayed entry. So you have to get a waiver from your mom. I'm like, okay. So I go to my mom, she's like, I'm not signing for you to go kill people. Like, okay. So I just go back down there and I'm like, hey, my mom won't sign. They're like, don't worry, we got something for you. So, you know, so I got an MOS. That was a blessing. And I think in hindsight, I realized God was really manipulating circumstances in my life with the job that I got and the people that were around me. But I ended up, I was in the first Gulf War. And when I came back, a friend of mine from church, he's now the Randy Barnes is his name. He's the pastor over at Temple Baptist. Yeah. He's like, hey, let's go on a ride along. So he wants to talk to me about, you know, Desert Storm and all that. So we go riding around and let me back up. I was at a point where I'm like, okay, if I'm staying in the military, I'm going to put my packet in for SFAS because I'm not doing this. Right. Yeah. And I came home and went on this ride along and really nothing happened. But, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, this is kind of what we do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm on SWAT and it's cool and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I think kind of like what you were telling me earlier. I was like, odds of having a family and keeping it is way better in this situation. Yeah. I'll be able to do a lot of the stuff that I want to do and, you know, not be away all the time. Yeah, you kind of are.
Overseas at least.
Yeah. You're away, you're just in the same town. But so that I kind of made the decision, you know, and so I came home. So being on SWAT was something I always wanted to do. You know, I realized that I love patrol. And I realized that you need to prove yourself, right? In my generation, in those days, like you didn't like run your mouth, man. Like dudes, if you were running your mouth about how great you were, like you'd get smacked down. Like you just would back then. And so I just knew work hard, be good on the road, be trustworthy, be good at my skills, right? To the level that I can.
Let your actions speak for themselves.
My old Beretta .92 and the paddle holster, you know.
Okay.
It was great. Like I was talking to one of my FTOs who was a SWAT team leader and ended up being the sheriff over there, Steve Keen. Like, yeah, talking to him. Yeah, I'm interested in SWAT and all that. And one day he's FTOing me, and I had to pull out my gun for something, and I pull it out of that paddle holster, and the thing just goes flying, and I'm like,
so can I be on the team?
Yeah, I'm not making it. Yeah, no, it was a great experience. That was kind of my thing. Kind of going back to what I said, I'm like, I want to fight the toughest dudes, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's what I'm getting paid for. So I want to be with a group of people that does that. And so I just got these opportunities as I went. It was kind of funny when I first started, there was we had a couple of guys that were instructors at the SWAT Basic. And I think we had a good team, for that time frame. You kind of hear a lot of, yeah, we're pretty good, and all this stuff. And I remember being new and I'm like on the range, I vividly remember this. Well, first off, we would show up, we would go, they had call it the clubhouse. They still have the clubhouse. They don't have it. They shut that thing down when I was there. It was Richland PD used it up by the gym up on the hill above Fran Rish.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we'd go to the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Then they'd sit around and talk about, well, what are we going to do? And we'd talk for 2 hours. Oh, we're going to the range. What do we got? Oh, no plan, no nothing, made up on the fly. And of course, back then, like, I ain't saying a word, man. I'm just like happy to be here. Mm-hmm. And I remember like 6 or 7 months, I'm like, man, we shoot at the range a lot. We haven't shot with our gas mask one time, but every time we go on a call out, we end up gassing some dude out, putting our gas mask on. Yeah. So like, these are the thoughts in my mind. And I just remember going, when I get the chance, I'm going to start influencing this. And so when we, at some point after adding Kennewick, we went from like 8 hour a month to 12-hour training days. Mm-hmm. And, of course, none of the guys want to do the work. And I'm like, hey, I'll volunteer to be training coordinator. Like, I'll just make that job up and do it. Yeah. And the team leader is like, okay, because he's like, I don't want to have to spend all this time. Yeah. So I started really investing into the team training, and I started to understand the importance of systems. Mm-hmm. And yeah, anyways, I could talk about a lot of different stuff there, but like over time, like, and it wasn't just me, there was a lot of guys that invested in gals that when we started getting gals that invested into that team and taking it where it is today. And it's pretty cool, like being able to look at what you guys do now and understand that I didn't experience some of the stuff you guys are doing, but I was a part of getting to the point where you could then step from there and do what you're doing. So a lot of really good calls. We had a lot of calls where people were trying to kill us, hostage rescues. From about 2014 on, it started getting pretty wild.
Since you had such a big part in the formative part of the team, what's the process look like to be on SWAT?
Well, assuming that there's been no major changes, when I got on, the PT test was like the Cooper standard. But now I think they're doing the NTOA test, I think. Are they doing that for you guys, or are they doing your test?
The 400 meter, then the like essentially CrossFit workout.
Yeah. So there's a physical test. There's shooting, shooting test, and then there's like an oral board, effectively, with the team leadership and whoever they choose to be on the board. And so they're looking at what's your physical capability, where are you with your shooting, and that's changed a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to get off on tangents here, but man, back in the day, it was no, this is a passing score. If you don't pass, see ya, bud. Bye. Yeah. And so went in there, like my whole thing, when I went to test, I'm like, I am going to do so good. These guys would be complete idiots to not pick me. Yeah. That's kind of my mentality. Yeah. But I think that there's just been so many things culturally that have changed. So they want to look for trainability. Of course, if you shoot better, that shows that you've put something into it. That's going to be a factor.
Already trained. You've already prepared.
And your selection. And then the oral board is to basically look at decision-making, thought process, not SWAT stuff, but like what you should know on patrol. Yep. Those kind of things. So that's the test in Tri-Cities. And that's pretty standard. There's some variations in different places, but that's pretty standard.
What I really want to get into is some of the calls. But before that, before we get into some of the hot calls, the fun stories, what are some of the missions that SWAT primarily focuses on, say like HR? Can you break down what does HR really look like? what's a hostage, stuff like that, because one thing I've noticed is there's so much more of this stuff that goes on than people really realize.
Yeah, so missions that the SWAT team will deal with. So you've got high risk warrant service, and kind of under that umbrella, your vehicle takedowns that you guys are doing. So your high risk arrests, those are falling under that. So we say high risk warrant service, but it's really, you look at the patterning of the person and the intel, and then you say, okay, do we need to go to their house and get them based on what's the totality, or are we going to do a surveillance takeaway, or are we doing a vehicle takedown, whatever it is. So you have that. You have barricaded suspect calls. So those are felony crimes of violence, and they're in progress. So patrols rolled up there to deal with a call. Everybody's out of that location except for the suspect, and they will not exit, and they've believed to be armed, done something very violent or whatever. That's probably between that search warrant, the majority of the calls. Hostage rescue, that's where people, for whatever reason, they've taken a hostage. And kind of the questions that we want people to ask, that they need to ask are, first off, does this person in fact have a hostage? It seems like a silly question. I've been dispatched to a call where a guy had hostages where they did not. And then because my wife is in my house and she's choosing not to leave, does not make her a hostage.
What is a hostage?
So that's the criteria I'm going over. So do they have a person in there?
Yep.
Have they expressed an intent to harm or kill them? So when you've got that, you've got the hostage part, right?
Yeah.
And then within reason, can we verify that they have the means to do so?
Right.
Which can vary depending on who the victim is, right?
Yep.
So there's been a lot of calls that I was on where it's like, okay, mom of the year walked out when we showed up. We're after some dude for homicide, and she left her 3-year-old in there. And it's like, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So are they a hostage? No, not yet. But are we gonna set up for that, because it could change that fast?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. Now, if we get dude on the phone or something, and he's like, hey, I got this kid in here, you guys need to back off or I'm killing this kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we got a hostage deal. And I've been on calls that flipped like that too. So yeah, I don't know if you want any more on that, but the hostage stuff is, you're talking probably not all teams, but data that we have, it's about 5% of SWAT calls.
Okay.
And that's pretty consistent, I think, with the Tri-City Regional SWAT Team. It was when I was there.
What's the call volume looked like annually from when you started to when you ended at the team?
Oh my goodness, man, there was back in the 90s, there was a year where I think we only had 7 calls. Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Back in the 90s. And it used to really frustrate me too, because I understood back then, like, what is a barricade, right? Like, what are these things? And the cops just handled them. They just handled them. But this was just before I got on the team. I'm gonna say a triple homicide guy and Kennewick police. And I kind of understand it back in that time. They weren't even gonna call for SWAT. They're like,
we got this.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they finally did get the Richland SWAT team over there for this guy. And they're like, you need to just go in there and get him, because we don't want to use a SWAT team, because then he might not confess or something dumb. Yeah. So that's kind of the culture.
Okay.
Even after that, when Kennewick was a part of our team, Trooper Saunders, I don't know if you ever heard of him. He got murdered in Pasco on a traffic stop. I mean, Ray Charles could see, we probably should call the SWAT team. I mean, they had troopers from everywhere, cops clearing locations. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
Never called SWAT team. Now, they ultimately found the guy in Pasco, and they called their SWAT team when they knew he was in a location. But to give you some perspective,
right,
that's part of the reason. And it used to just drive me nuts. Like, they would just, and even back then, the SWAT team would do stupid stuff like that we would never do today, Yeah, so there were years like that. When I left, oddly enough, we literally had about 64, 65 a year. It always seemed to land on that number for the last several years I was there. Every year, same, and the barricade numbers would be within 1 or 2 every year. It was the craziest thing. Yeah.
You know what it's been recently.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, you guys, it's out of control. Thank you, crime bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, the team now, like, in my opinion, need a full-time element. It's just too much, man. As a collateral duty team,
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was joking about at the beginning, was you got patrol, but then a part-time team with full-time job of like 130 ops a year.
It's out of control.
But that's also including on duties and stuff like that. In regards to billets on the team, So like my background have billets and different capabilities and stuff. You know, SWAT's the same way. What are some of the different capabilities and like billets on the team that you saw?
Yeah, there may be some slight variation now with you guys because it was ever changing when I was there. So billets, cadres, we'll call them. So we had snipers, we had breachers, we had CNT when I left. So CNT, our
Negotiators.
CNT, yeah, the negotiators, they are SWAT officers. So we had our own a cadre then. I think all of you guys do it now. We had the tech guys. So they would run the robots and all that stuff. The scout, I think we called them scouts and tech.
Okay.
At that time. Yeah, I think those were the cadres we had then, and I think that's probably expanded a bit now with your capability, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite calls that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah.
Hot calls or whether patrol, SWAT, whatever?
Yeah, I'll try to be fast and just pick a few. So I'll start with a patrol one, and I had a lot of good patrol stuff. I'm street crime sergeant, and it was early on, I think about 2014, and I had this, it was a white Impala SS, and man, that thing would get down. It was fast. I ended up with an SUV before I left. So, but it's all unmarked, totally cold, right?
Yeah.
And call kicks out. It was in the afternoon, I want to say probably about 4 o'clock-ish. So you know how busy it is on G-Way at 4 o'clock. Like multiple calls coming in about this dude driving like insane, driving like a nut, just swerving towards people and all this stuff. I was like right in the area. It came out like George and Jadwin or something. And I was over on A-Bird or something. So I'm like, hey, I'll look for it. So I pull out onto G-Way. Boom.
There he is.
There it is. So I'm like, hey, I got this car. And I said, if Mark Unit wants to get up here, I'll just back you up or whatever. I think it was Al Jenkins. He pulls in front of me, and he goes to light that thing up, and it's on, man. I mean, it's on. Like he flat pedals to the metal. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
Is he going south or north?
He's going north.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had previous driving, so I was pretty comfortable with that one going, although I'm in an unmarked. So it's like, hey, let's get some other cars up here kind of a thing. Flying down G-Way. Cars are peeling off. Well, he gets up to, oh goodness, Denny's. Is that Williams? No. What's the?
Yeah, Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He gets to there and he you know how it's on the corner? He turns to the corner, hits the corner, completely airborne. And in that moment, I was like, I literally went, oh my God, someone is dead. Don't know how this dude did it. Totally flew over the cars parked. Landed
in Denny's?
Landed in the parking lot in Denny's.
And went in
didn't
and got
hit anybody.
No.
No, he kept going, but he blew out some tires. So then he goes and he's going along uptown.
Yeah.
On that, it would be that
south side,
right? So we're behind, and now I'm like you can't be furious, but I'm furious. I'm like, this dude's better comply or he's going to get beat. Pretty much, that's my mindset. I'm like,
he legitimately Dukes of Hazzard it over these
100%.
cars.
And that's not my only Dukes of Hazzard story. 100%. But now I'm like, we're getting this dude.
Yeah.
And Al Jenkins, he was a legit cop. So I'm like, okay, I'm with Al. We're good.
Yeah.
Cars are coming in, from everywhere to help us. He's on a flat tire. So he goes all the way to the top there where you can go in and go in the alleyway. And he goes all the way and we're behind him and he's slowing down and he ends up stopping like right at the tea room. He foot bells. So we're in a foot pursuit. So he foot bells, he goes towards the front entrance of the tea room or towards that direction.
Yep.
And I'm running after him. And at that time I had, because of the assignment, I actually had a drop leg, but I tried to cinch it up. Well, that thing is, I'm running full speed. So it's getting in front of me.
Yeah.
Right about the time my MO back then on foot pursuits like that, I would push the guy because they're going so fast.
Mm-hmm.
They can't keep their feet, right? So I'm almost on him and he cuts to the right. And I remember thinking, but I can't, my legs like all goofy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy, it's me and Al, right? So he ends up running. He doesn't get very much further. He gets up to like an island and we take him down and it fights on and he's reaching for a gun. He's got a concealed gun.
Hmm.
And
where on his body?
I think it was like in his front waistband, I think. And he's on his front and he's down and we're trying to get his hands out and we can't get both of his hands out. We're giving him commands and everything. And he ends up turning and I ended up going to an elbow strike. So I did an elbow strike to his face and just snapped his nose that fast. And then boom, his arms come out.
You saved his life with that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And we got him in custody and it's so funny. He's like, I really didn't have a problem with you guys punching me so much, but did you really have to like elbow me in the face? And I'm like,
your choice.
Dude, it's pretty simple, man. Like, bring your hands out, and I'm not gonna let you pull a gun out on me, kind of thing. So that was a pretty good patrol one. I mean, I had lots of good patrol ones, man. I love patrol. It was fun because you're doing these in progress incidents, SWAT stuff. Ton of good SWAT ones. Well, was on one. I'm just not gonna go into the whole story, but it was following an OIS, and this dude actually Dukes of Hazzarded the Bearcat. 100%. Ask Jeremy about it. 100% happened. With that one, we were ramming this. It was a Suburban. I think we could have probably won wars with Suburbans after watching what this guy did with this thing. Ramming that thing and all. It was just an insane call. Had some really good barricades where just these suspects, man, out of control, and we're just hit multiple times. I had one in Kennewick where the dude, he was high. These guys are all high, right?
Yeah.
The guy in the pursuit, totally high.
Right.
This guy, it's freezing cold. He tries to start a neighbor's apartment on fire as KPD's showing up. They look up and they see him. He's like an upper level, and then he sees them, runs in his apartment, and then they get the fire put out. Then they're trying to deal with him, and he's like, I'm going to kill everybody, kind of a thing. So we end up going out to that. He won't come out. Well, we finally expel him with some chemical agents, and he comes out totally naked. And it's like freezing cold. It's like single digits. But he's coming and he's trying to break into this apartment that he had tried to set the fire. And he's just in and out. And we got dudes just lighting him up with the just boom, boom, every time he comes out. And I'm there like with the team.
Wait, you lighten them up. You said less lethal, like the 40s.
Yeah, it was the 37s at the time. Yep. I know you guys have gone to 40s. So we had multi-launchers and deuces. Mm-hmm. And we had learned, I had calls where dudes came out with guns and we have a less lethal failure. And you're like, are you kidding me right now? Actually, one of them's on video that I sent you. Okay. And yeah, we did a coordinated arrest. But anyways, so dude's just going in, it's like a ping pong ball, right? And they're just SL6, just boom, 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 boom. He runs dry. I'm like, and Miller was there. Miller was our back. I'm like, dude, get up here. He had the BML. The other dude's reloading. He's coming out again. Boom, 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 boom. Unloading. Here's Nelson with the multi-launcher. And I'm like, hey, do we got rounds? They're like, not here. And I'm like, get back to the bus, man. Get everything we got. And so Miller's one of the coolest things. I look back and Miller's running back and he's got ammo cans full of 37s. And I'm like, it's a pretty good day. Yeah, so we ended up, just hitting that guy a whole bunch of times and then ended up doing a coordinated arrest on him with the dog, and Josh were up there and stapling him with the taser and all that kind of stuff. So those are fun. Those calls are fun. I mean, if they're going to fight, I want to be there to be a part of that.
Nothing like a high naked dude.
Yeah. The naked part wasn't great, but
seems to be the thing though.
Yeah. The hostage rescues, those are complicated.
Yeah.
There's more at stake. So I had some good ones. We rescued a kid on my first one as a team leader on a stealth probe. Super cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that was cool. And arrested his dad had taken him hostage and threatened to kill him. That was a good one.
How old was the kid?
3.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a pretty good one. Early days of pinging phones. So we were getting a phone ping, but we weren't sure. So I had the team set up to go to this trailer or this one. It was up on on Steptoe.
Okay.
And people start coming out of the house and we're like, hey, come on over here. So come over. Hey, is so-and-so in here? Oh yeah, it's my uncle. Where's he at? Scout said, oh, he's here. He's asleep. He's with another guy. We're like, another guy? No idea about another guy. Mm-hmm. Kid with him? Yep, kid's with him. Send her back to the command post, and then here comes another dude. We're like, hey, get over here, man. But we're keeping it down. He comes over. It's early in the morning. Tells us the exact same thing. We're like, okay. I told command, I'm like, we're going to launch right now, man. Stealth probe. This was like 06. So just a couple years before, dude, it would have been like hand wringing in the command post probably. And that's because that's how it was, right? The culture. And so we had changed a lot. So that was cool. So we were able to take that opportunity, got that kid. I had one of the guys, we got to the room and I'm like, grab the kid, get him out. And then the rest of the dudes took the guys. And so that was cool. was a narcotics warrant. And again, this is like back in like '09 or something. So this is kind of back then you were doing dynamic entries for search warrants. Like so this particular one, I think it was a Metro deal. I don't remember the specifics of the drugs, but we were doing a dynamic entry, and the guy had a pit bull, like a trained attack dog, and our intel was that the informant, when he would go do the buys, he would have to walk like an extra half a mile to get around where that dog couldn't get to, because he was so afraid of it, because it would attack anyone.
Yeah.
So we knew that going in. So our plan was, hey, let's load a dude on the rails with the SL6, just smack that dog with the SL6, and we'll see if we can disable the dog with that. We were rolling in multiple pieces of armor, and there was like, I think 2 window ports, and then we were gonna make entry on the front with the bang. We roll in there, bust through their fence, and dog comes, it's on a chain, you know, and it comes running right at us. And so our guy's launching 37s, he's missing it, it's running, and so it starts running. And I'm like, okay, I think we're good. And then it runs off, and then it's like, comes right back. And then they're like, nope, it's coming back. So it was actually Steve Coy was the guy. He worked at the sheriff's office. He's like, I got it. So the dog comes back, and and I mean, it was totally not scared. It was going to eat one of us. Yeah. You know, and it comes right up to the rails, and he just whack, whack, smacks it 2 times. So we put the dog down, go in, and breach the door and crash all the windows. And, you know, back in those days, that was window porting all these windows and smashing every door and flashbangs and going in there. And so, that's kind of how we did most of the warrants back then. Yeah, I had some other HRs that were pretty satisfying. The last one I was on out in Benton City, that was one where it started out as a suicidal guy with a gun. And then the guy he's in a car, and the county goes out there and he goes into the house, and then they're calling for on duty. And I was like, I remember thinking, I don't want to go to some suicidal dude that went in his house. Like, I kind of don't care. I guess he's your captain now, or commander, whatever they call him, Chris Mason. I'm like, hey, can you go out there, man? He was on my shift. I'm like, can you go out there and just let me know if I have to come out there? So this dude goes in the house, and his girlfriend's in there. So that's kind of complicates it. He ended up being a felon in possession. He was a felon, and he had done prison. He had shot at KPD before, so it turns into a mess. But it wasn't really a hostage thing, really. He was just in there. So Chris calls me up. He's like, hey, we need you out here, man. I'm like, okay, I'm coming. I'm like, before I come out there, do we need armored vehicle? Do we need the Bearcat? What do we need? He's like, well, I'm kind of thinking. I'm like, Chris, just tell me, do we need the Bearcat? He's like, yes. I'm like, okay. So I call Griff. I'm like, hey, buddy, you listen to the radio? He's like, yep. I go, need you out here, man. Bring the Bearcat. Nelson's coming out. He's there. I think he's going to run tactics. And I said, look, just come. There's a couple people out. I'm going to interview them, and let's just try to get this chick out so I can go home, because I don't want to be here. It's pretty busy at RPD running the shift and all that. So I get out there, and the kind of the long and short of it is interview those people. It was the kids of the gal. The dude was using meth. She had told him, I already warned him once, said, hey, if you keep using them, you're out. So that's what the dispute was. Well, we get her on the phone, and I'm like, hey, just come out. Just come out, and it'll be fine. We'll get it worked out. Well, I don't want to come out, because I'm afraid he's going to kill himself, and I can help him. And she genuinely this woman had like 0 criminal history. I think in her brain, she really thought that she could influence this. And, but I'm sitting here going, really, man? Like, just because you know how it compounds your problem. Yeah. Well, he ended up, pretty quickly, he ended up putting a gun to her head, threatening to kill her, flat out told us she ain't coming out, kind of a thing. So that flipped to the hostage thing. And I actually ran C&T on that one. And what was cool about that was, well, there was some not cool and cool. I actually talked to him early on before the SWAT team came out. And being a C&T team leader role, you don't negotiate. That's a huge no-no. But that's not what it was when I started with that. So I had to do a switch out with Matt, and there was a couple of times, man, in there, I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, she's dead. He's going to kill her. The gravity of it, like you knew, like in the back of your head, someone's dying today. And so you knew that, right? You could feel it, but it's like, I just really don't want it to be the hostage kind of a thing. So ultimately, just to not make a super long story, one of our snipers at the time, we had pretty good intel. We were pretty sure they were in the front room the whole time. One of the odd things about it is they were on a landline on a speakerphone, which we hadn't even had a landline probably in 10 years on a barricade. That complicates things. Like, you can't just say, hey, can you come out? Because he'll fly off and do God knows what. Well, one of our snipers gets on the radio and they're like, hey, Groom Command, or Groom Dubois, I think he called me by name, or CNT, whatever he said. He's like, hey, can you confirm where they're at in the living room? And so I passed that to Griffin, and like, you can't just come out and ask that. And I'll tell you what, man, unbelievable, like how he did this. And he had done a couple things in that call already. I was like, bro, you're like a rock star, man, like a rock star. Like at one point, okay, I'm going to rabbit trail. At one point, this guy was so jacked up about the Bearcat, and we were coordinating, getting it moved a little bit. And at one point, the second time around, he literally says to the guy, he goes, hey man, we got this all worked out. We're going to move that thing. Can you do me a favor? Can you look out the front window and tell us where you want it? And I'm like, looked at him and I'm like, so I get on the radio and I'm like, hey, CNT Tactics, I go, get ready. He might look out that window, because I knew what would happen. Well, he didn't do it. So flip back to where we're at. So Groom asks, hey, where are they at in the room? I tell Griffin, hey, can you find out? So he goes, are you okay? Because he was talking to the hostage, talking to her. He goes, are you okay? Are you like sitting down? Because we had some information that she was coming off of a surgery and couldn't move very well. He's like, are you doing all right? He's like, are you sitting down or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I'm sitting down on the couch in the living room. And I think he says, he either said, she just spilled it, or he asked, is he doing okay? Is he with you? And she's like, yeah, he's just walking around in the living room. And I'm like, so I get on the radio and I'm like, CNT, SOT 1, he's walking around in the living room right now. Like, it doesn't get any better than that, the intel.
And SOT's snipers.
And like within just a few seconds, shot goes off, and immediately the shot, I'm like, okay, we're done. Yeah. So he took him out, and we saved her. So that was super rewarding.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you want to get everybody out. You don't want to have to do that. But I mean, that's the name of the game, man.
It's a decision they made.
Yeah. And what was rewarding is that our system worked.
Yeah.
And everybody did what they were supposed to do.
It's awesome.
mean, we had a lot of mistakes that day, but overall, you can look back and feel really good about it. So, yeah. Anyways, I got 1,000 stories, man.